year in particular, I remember that many stores were opening their doors right at midnight on Black Friday. Normally, I was not one to camp out and wait in line, but on that year in particular, I decided to. For a few days leading up to Thanksgiving, I'd been talking with my friend Sam about it. He really wanted to because there were some great deals at some stores, Best Buy in particular. So by Thanksgiving, we ended up deciding that we would. After the Thanksgiving get-togethers with our families, we both met up at about 9 p.m., a whole 3 hours before the doors opened. We went to the shopping center near where we lived, which had just about every major store in the area. After Sam and I arrived at Best Buy, there were already some people in line, but not too many. I would say maybe 50 people or so in front of us. Sam brought some folding chairs for us to sit in, and then we just waited and talked. It got cold sitting out there, but people soon got in line behind us, and by 11:30 at night there were probably at least 100 people behind us. The main thing that I was hoping to get was a laptop, and Sam was getting one as well. But Sam also wanted to buy a TV, because they had one that was on sale for a really great deal. So eventually, it was midnight, and we heard cheering from up front in the line, and we saw the doors open up. Things were pretty civil, and people rushed inside, but at a fast walk. Nobody was sprinting or knocking each other over or anything. We made it inside quickly, and then went straight for the laptops. Personally, I didn't realize how much everyone was trying to buy these same laptops that I wanted to get. I knew they were a great deal, but I figured that they would probably be available for several hours at least. However, when we got to the laptops, Sam grabbed one and I did the same. I then saw many other people crowded around and start taking them. I realized how lucky we were to have gotten there when we did. So I took my laptop and Sam took his, and we started heading over to the TVs where Sam would get one. The store by this point was completely crowded with a ton of people, and it was only getting busier. As Sam and I made our way to the TVs and were about halfway there, I remember somebody tried grabbing my laptop. I had been holding it in my right hand and did not have a very secure grasp on it. I felt somebody come up right behind me and then tug on it. I almost let go, but thankfully I didn't, and I quickly turned and grabbed it with my other hand as well. There was a brief tug-of-war contest that lasted for about 2 seconds, and I maintained control of the laptop. I looked, and I saw this shorter man with dark hair who was the guy who had tried grabbing it. But after letting go, he turned around and quickly went back into the crowd and out of my sight. I didn't get a real good look at him. I was glad that I still had the laptop, so I turned and now held it like a football, securing my arm around it. I hurried to catch up with Sam, who didn't realize what had happened. Soon we both arrived at the TVs, and Sam was also able to get one of them before they sold out. Then we started making our way back through the crowd up to the check lanes. Obviously, this would take longer than usual. I tried to hold on tight to the laptop. Well, almost halfway up to the check lanes, I felt somebody try grabbing it again. The back part of the box was exposed, and that's what they tried pulling on. This time, the tug from behind was much harder and forceful. Fortunately, I had a pretty good grip on it, and I still almost let go of it, but I didn't. I then quickly turned around and I saw that it was the same guy. He was standing right there in the crowd. I remember that he looked angry for a moment, and then he started laughing, almost as if to say he was just messing with me. But I knew that he wasn't. I knew he was really trying to take the laptop from me. But after that, he quickly turned around and blended in with the crowd again. There were so many other people around, I'm not even sure if anyone else noticed. But when I turned back, I saw that Sam had seen it, at least part of it. He asked me if that guy had tried taking my laptop. I said yes, and told him how he had tried to take it before as well. We guarded our items defensively and made the rest of the way up to the checkouts. If somebody had been able to take our items from us before we checked out, it wasn't stealing because they weren't paid for yet. So if they were able to take it, they could just walk up and then buy it instead of us buying it. And the store was so busy that even if we found an employee to complain about it, there's a chance that they wouldn't be able to do anything. So thankfully, we got to the checkout line and it moved pretty quickly. We were able to buy the items, and after paying for them, we left the store. In the parking lot, people were still walking in and out, but I had parked in the back and it was pretty quiet over there. As we walked past the cars through the parking lot, I remember that I was talking with Sam about what happened in more detail. As I did, I turned around and I saw the same guy now leaving the store and walking in our direction. He did not have anything in his hands, such as a bag from the store or an item that he bought. I told Sam that was him, and after seeing the guy quickly leaving the store, we decided to walk faster to make it to the car. Like I said, we were way in the back of the parking lot, so we started walking fast, and a few moments later, I looked back again. The guy was still heading towards us. Maybe he was just also going to his car and happened to park by us, but I didn't want to take the chance. Soon, we were able to make it to my car, and there were a few open parking spaces around us because we were literally in the far back corner. After we put our items in the back seat, we went around and got into the front. I was driving, and after closing my door and locking it, I saw in the mirror the man now reaching my vehicle. He walked behind it, but did not go past it. He just kind of stopped right there. We could not leave until he moved out of the way. I remember Sam asking what the guy was doing. I had no idea. He continued to just stand there for at least over a minute. He wasn't really looking at us, but just kind of casually standing around, just a few feet from the back of my car. Then he turned and did start looking at us for a few moments. Sam rolled down his window slightly and asked the man what was going on. The man then turned and started walking around to Sam at the passenger's window. Before he got there though, he tried opening the back door to the car really quickly. Now that he was no longer blocking my way to back up, as he was reaching Sam at the front passenger side, I hit the gas and reversed out of the spot. We left the guy standing there near our parking space. After that, we left the parking lot and got out of there. We went to a couple more stores briefly and then made it back to our homes safely. Looking back, that was the craziest experience I've ever had on Black Friday. I really don't know why that guy kept trying to take my laptop. Possibly he had tried taking laptops from multiple people as my guess, but when he followed us out to the parking lot, it was really strange. Many years ago, I used to work at an electronics store that would get really busy on Black Friday. For most of the year, the store would not be very busy at all. It was a smaller place, and many of them were in malls. Our location was not inside of a mall, but was part of a strip mall. So most of the time, we would really only have 1 or 2 employees working and wouldn't get that many customers at once. There were a few days though where we needed more, such as certain weekend sales, the Christmas season, and of course, Black Friday. We opened that year on Black Friday very early in the morning. I don't recall if it was 5 a.m., 6, or 7, but it was earlier than usual. I was opening the store along with 3 other employees. The setup of the store was basically items all along the walls, with a few display tables and more things for sale on them. There was also a couple of shelves, but not very many. Then we had our employee desk that had just 2 registers on it, and then there was a small backroom area in the store as well. We had put up a line divider thing to make there be an organized line of people waiting to check out, and then we had both registers open. The other 2 employees would be out in the store, helping customers and doing whatever else was needed, as the other 2 rang people up. When we opened, we got a lot of customers pretty much right away. Our store was having a major sale. The crowds were not overwhelming, but were significant. For the first couple of hours, I was one of the employees working at the register and checking out customers. Then I was assigned to help customers inside of the store. The time went by really fast because I was kept pretty busy. I remember that at one point though, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a man walking into our back room. That space was for employees only, and normally the door was always locked, but it must have been left unlocked because this guy had just walked right in. I made my way over there to tell the guy that he couldn't be back there, but it took a little bit longer than usual because of how crowded the store was. I soon got back there though and entered the back room. It was a very small area but kind of cluttered. There were 2 doors leading to the store, one that I had just walked through and the other leading to behind the desk where the employees were. There was also an exit door that led out to the back of the building. After entering the back room, I did not see the guy anywhere. I was confused at first, and I called out asking if anybody was there. After getting no response, I figured that the guy must have left out the back door. That made me worried that he might have stole some stuff. I looked around and did not see anything that was obviously stolen from the back though. So I went back out into the store and was going to try to find out if anything was stolen there. I found another employee, and I told my coworker Jeff about what had happened. He told me that I should go into the back room and check to make sure nothing was stolen, and he would make sure nothing was stolen from the sales floor. So I started to make my way over there, and that's when I saw the back door opening again. The same man started to walk out, but then he noticed me and he went back in the room and closed the door. I walked as fast as I could through the crowd to get back over to the room again. I was able to make it within about a minute and get inside, but when I did, once more I didn't see the guy in there. I called out again and once more got no response. I could not figure out where this guy was hiding or if he had left the store. I started to look around and check if anything was stolen. I went to the far end of the narrow back room and began looking at the items there. As I was doing so, I suddenly felt that somebody was behind me. I turned around to see the man standing there, now slowly walking towards me. I had no idea where he came from. He was a big guy, larger than me, and his face was nearly expressionless. I was concerned and did not know what he wanted. Seeing him back there totally took me by surprise. After a few moments, the only words I could get out were, "What are you doing back here?" He did not say anything, but kept walking towards me. Just then, the other door to the back opened, the one that led from behind the counter. My coworker Jeff was there, and he called out telling the man that he could not be in the back room. The man saw him, stopped for a moment, and then bolted for the back door. He ran out and left the building completely. I was glad that he was finally gone. He also did not appear to have stolen anything. We went over and checked, and nothing was missing. We also realized that the man must have been hiding behind some boxes that were back there. I had never looked in that particular area. I really don't know what that man's intentions were, but it was very creepy to say the least. This happened back in 2007. My husband and I were planning on going Black Friday shopping that year. We had a normal Thanksgiving, but then we got up really early the next morning at 4:30 a.m. There were a few things that I was interested in getting, and I had read the advertisements and saw that there were a lot of good deals. We were going to several different stores, but we would be starting at Walmart. We got there a little bit after 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was insanely busy. Firstly, the only available parking spaces were at the far back of the parking lot. Then, when we got inside of the store, it was the busiest that I had ever seen a store in my entire life. You could hardly walk anywhere at all because there were so many people around. My husband and I started to make our way through the store, but it was impossible to walk anywhere without people bumping into you left and right. Within probably 5 minutes of being inside, we were not even halfway to the back of the store yet, and around then, I ended up getting separated from my husband. The mob of people basically swallowed us both, forcing us into different directions. I tried looking around for my husband, but I couldn't figure out which direction he was in. For a little while, I tried going forward, but did not have any luck. I decided at that point to leave the store and try to call my husband on my cell phone. I was much closer to the doors to exit anyways, so I turned around and started going against the grain. I slowly walked through the mob of people, and within several minutes was able to find the doors. Then I got outside of the Walmart, but there were still a bunch of people constantly coming and going from the entrance doors, so I figured that I would go back to the car and call my husband there. I walked all the way to the back end of the parking lot and reached our vehicle, but I then realized that I did not have the keys. My husband had them, and obviously the car was locked. So instead, I just stood by it, where it was finally quiet and not filled with people. I could actually hear myself think, and I took out my cell phone. I saw that my husband had tried to call me. I must not have heard it ringing or felt it vibrating because of being stuck in the large mob of people, so I tried to call him back, but he did not answer. He probably was stuck inside the mob and didn't even notice the call. I figured that he would think to come out of the store like I had, so I decided to wait by our car. It was cool and comfortable outside, and refreshing compared to inside of the crazy mob of Walmart. After being out there just standing around by the car for maybe 5 minutes, I remember I heard a vehicle nearby. I looked over and saw one of those old white Astro vans from the 1990s. It was in rough shape, and the engine was running rather loud. The van slowly made its way from the far back end of the parking lot over to the row of cars that we were parked in. The van started to drive past me very slowly, but then it stopped. I remember that the window then rolled down, and I saw a man with a goatee and a baseball cap was driving it. He said hi to me, and then asked me if I needed a ride. I was already kind of creeped out by him, and I said no thanks. I expected the man to drive away, but he didn't. Instead, the man said, "No, I think you need a ride. Hop in." I said, "No thanks, I'm really good." The man asked me what I was doing out there all alone. At that point, I decided to just go back inside of the Walmart. As crazy of a scene as it was in there, I guess it wasn't that much better out in the parking lot, so I just turned and started walking back to the store. As I walked, the van slowly but loudly started keeping pace with me. The man called out to me several more times, telling me that I should get inside of his car. I just ignored him. Soon, I made it to the front doors, where some other people were around, and I felt better. I remember that the man then turned in his van though, and started to park it along the front side of Walmart by the curbs. This was definitely not a parking space. As he parked anyways though, I headed for the doors, but looked back one more time to see the man now getting out of his vehicle. This made me go faster. Soon, I rejoined the crazy mob of people, and I was once again brushing shoulders with tons of other shoppers, just trying to make it in. But then, I happened to see my husband walking towards me from the other direction. I cut in front of a few people to try to get over to him. It was difficult, but soon we were able to make it back to each other. He was trying to leave the store and go outside. After I found him, we both went towards the exits. Within a couple of minutes, we were able to make it back. Then we left Walmart. When we did, I saw the van still parked out front, but nobody appeared to be inside of it, so the man must have been in the store. I told my husband about the creepy experience with the guy, and we decided to just leave and go to another store instead. I did not see that creepy guy or his van again after that, and I'm not sure if he went inside a Walmart just to go after me or not, but it sure seemed like it. That was one of the craziest Black Fridays that I've ever experienced. I went shopping with my friend Jessica on Black Friday last year. I first went over to her house at around 7 a.m. and then we took her car and went to several stores. We live in a pretty busy area and there are a lot of places to shop nearby. So when we drove to the first store, there were lots of other people there shopping. Overall, it was not too crazy though. There were no specific things that we desperately needed to get, but I wanted to get a start on my Christmas shopping. After going to several different stores, later on we both were at this one clothing store. This one was the busiest one yet, and it was a larger store. I remember that we both found a few things to get, but there was a really long line to check out. We got in the line anyways, and not long after us, this man got in line right behind. He looked sort of mysterious, and kind of stood out right away. He was wearing sunglasses and a long black jacket. He also wore a black winter hat. The man just stood there, staring straight ahead. I was talking with Jessica, who was standing next to me the whole time, so I would see the man out of the corner of my vision. I soon realized that he didn't seem to have any items in his hands to buy at all either. For the most part though, I just ignored him. We ended up waiting in line for probably close to 30 minutes. The line slowly moved up until it was finally our turn to check out. After we did, we left the store. Jessica and I needed to go to another store after that, and we were there for a while. Then we were finally done shopping and went back. We went to Jessica's house, and I hung out there with her for a while before going back to my place. When I got home, it was sometime in the late afternoon to early evening. I live in a pretty typical neighborhood for the most part, and a pretty average house. I just remembered that at like 10 o'clock at night, there was a knocking on my front door. I got up and walked over to the front window. I wanted to look outside before answering it, because a 10 p.m. knock on the door is a little bit unusual. When I looked, I could not believe my eyes. It was the same man who had been in line behind us at the store. He was still wearing the same exact thing, with the hat and sunglasses and everything. Obviously, I had no idea what he wanted, but I didn't want to find out either. I watched the man just stand there for a while. Then he knocked on the door again. I still didn't answer it. He then stood there for a really long time. He was probably there for at least 5 minutes. Then, finally, he walked away. I saw him go down the street and then out of my sight. A short time after that, a car drove past, which I'm guessing was his. I really don't know why the guy showed up at my house, or how he even knew where I lived. It made me wonder though, if he had been following me all day or something. If he had been, I certainly didn't notice, and I'm hoping that I don't see him again. I used to work at a Target store. One time, I had to work during Black Friday. I knew that it would be really busy at the store, and I was prepared for there to be lots of people. I worked out in the parking lot pushing carts most of the time. We opened up on Thanksgiving, so I was there from the start. Fortunately, we had lots of people working that night, so for me it wasn't too bad. I was mostly just going around the parking lot and getting carts that people did not put in the places they were supposed to. A lot of carts were left in random parking spaces or near a curb, so I was getting those a lot. There was another person out working with me getting the carts, so it was nice to have help, and I wasn't really in a rush. But I remember that when it got later, at probably around 11 p.m., things were still really busy. I was walking near one of the far back corners of the parking lot, collecting a stray cart that was over there. When I did, I happened to notice a guy really far away, pushing a cart around the side of the Target building. This was strange because there were no parking spaces on that side of the store. I wasn't sure where he was going with it, so as I brought in the cart that I had just got, I kept an eye on him. The man just kept on going down the building. So I put the cart that I had in a cart rack, and then I walked to the side of the building myself. I wanted to see where the guy was going, and when I got to the side of the building, I just barely saw him pushing the cart still, going completely behind the Target store. So I kept going, and I was planning on asking the guy where he was going with that cart. I could not tell if anything was in the cart or not, but it didn't appear so. But I also knew that there were no parking spaces behind the building either. Behind our Target, there was a small and quiet access road that was only used for truck deliveries. Then there was a grass area with several pine trees, and on the other side of that was another quiet road. So when I finally got around to the back of the building, at first I couldn't tell where the man had gone. I didn't really see anything. But then I heard some talking coming from just inside the grass. I walked down the paved area and then went up into the grass. There were several trees in the area, and I could tell they were behind them. It made it almost a wooded area, but within the trees was a clearing. When I got inside of that clearing, I saw 2 pickup trucks, about 5 or 6 men standing around, and 2 Target shopping carts. Another guy had a cart as well. I had no idea what was going on. They all stopped and looked at me. One of the guys finally spoke and called me over. I just had a bad feeling about it. I just said, "What are you guys doing?" The guy told me to come over to them again. For some reason, I was terrified and I just started walking away. I didn't even ask for the carts back. When I turned, I heard one of the guys start to walk after me. At that point, I just sprinted away, running as fast as I could. I was able to make it back around the Target and I went inside the store for a while. When I was in there, I saw one of our security guards and I decided to tell him about the situation. He asked me to show him where the guys were, so we both went back there, but when we did, they were gone. The security guard was not exactly sure what had been going on there either. After that, we both went back to the front of the store and he went inside. I worked outside mostly for the next hour or so, but I remember that when I was getting a few carts from deep in the parking lot, I noticed something. One of the same trucks that I'd seen parked behind the Target in the grass was now parked out front. It was just to the left of the right side entrance door. I know there are a lot of pickup trucks out there, but this one I could just tell was the same. It was the same color, make, and model, and I just knew it. As I walked closer to the store with the carts, I suddenly saw 2 men come sprinting out of the Target store. They were holding several items in their hands, no doubt shoplifting. They both ran to the pickup truck, quickly got inside, and the truck then screeched off, squealing the tires as it left. Soon after, I saw the Target security guard come running out of the store. I caught up with him and talked to him about what happened. He said he was going to go back and look at the security footage. Obviously, Black Friday weekend was very busy for the security guys. That was a crazy thing to happen. I think I may have found those guys planning their shoplifting adventures or something, but I'm really not sure exactly what it was. My name is Ashley, and this is something that happened way back in 2003. That year, at Thanksgiving, I decided I was going to get up early and do some Black Friday shopping the next day. I looked at some advertisements, and there were some really good deals. I also got some ideas for gifts for family members as well. During this time, I was 20 years old and back from college for the time. I asked my parents if they wanted to go shopping with me in the morning, but they already had plans. So the next day, at like 6 a.m., I got up and went to the nearby shopping center. I first went to Best Buy and then Walmart and Target, and I got a few things. Each of those stores were very busy, as you would expect on Black Friday. My fourth stop of the day was Circuit City. By now, it was not quite as crazy as before, but it was still extremely busy with lots of people there. I remember that I went inside and I started looking around at stuff. Not long after, this employee guy came up to me. I remember that his name was Todd, and he asked me if I needed help with anything. I told him something like, "No thanks, I was just looking." But this Todd guy seemed to follow me around. He started making conversation with me, asking how I was doing and stuff. I was wondering why he was spending so much time talking to me when there were so many other customers around. But he didn't really say anything that strange or ask me anything that personal, so I just figured that he was a friendly guy. He appeared to be in his mid to late 20s if I had to guess. So eventually he sort of left me alone, and I walked around the store and found a few things to buy. But then Todd found me again. He asked me if I was ready to check out, and I said yes. I remember that he then opened a register and scanned my items, and I paid. During the checkout, he asked me for my address, saying that it was for the protection plan of one of the items I was buying, and I gave it to him. After that, I left the Circuit City store and headed home. I got back and hung out around the house with my family for the rest of the day. However, I remember that I was watching a movie with my parents that night, and there was a knock at the door. By now, it was like 9 p.m., so this was a little bit strange. My dad got up to go and see who was there, but I was curious, so I went over and looked out the window. When I did, I saw Todd from Circuit City. I couldn't believe that he was at my house. My dad answered the door, but as soon as it opened, Todd turned around and started walking off. I remember my dad asking him who he was and what he was doing, but Todd pretty much just ran away and didn't answer any of his questions. I told my parents about what happened at Circuit City. We all agreed that Todd was a bit of a creep for that. I figured that I wouldn't see him again though, but I was wrong. A while later, we all went to bed. The lights in the house went off, and I went to my bedroom. I was tired from being up so early, and I fell asleep rather fast, but I awoke not too much long after that. At first, I was not sure what had woken me up. I didn't hear anything, and I looked around the room and saw nothing. But then, I noticed my bedroom window. Todd was standing right outside of it and looking in. I quickly got up, and without hesitation, I ran out of the room. I went to the phone in the kitchen, and I called the police. I told them about what happened, and after that, I woke my parents. We waited inside, and when the police got there, Todd was gone. However, after telling them what I knew about him, such as that he worked at Circuit City, it was not a big mystery as to who it was. I heard that Todd ended up getting fired from Circuit City. Luckily, after that, I never saw him again. I have a really crazy experience that happened a few years ago on Black Friday. I'm a female and in my mid-20s. At this particular time, I went with my best friend Stephanie to go Black Friday shopping. We live not too far away from a really large mall, and on Black Friday, it's a fun place to be. Sure, there are quite a few other people shopping there as well, but that doesn't bother me. We also have a friend named Jack who we went to school with, and he was working at one of the stores in the mall, so Stephanie and I wanted to say hi to him and say hi. We arrived at the mall early in the morning and started shopping. As you would guess, it was very crowded. We got a few things, and then we went to the store that Jack was working at and said hi to him, and his store was also very busy like the rest of them. After leaving the store, we were making our way towards the other end of the mall when I got a text message. I remember that I took out my phone and I saw that it was from a number I did not recognize. The text was telling me to come back to the store. I realized that this had to be Jack, except I already had his number in my phone. He was in my contacts, and I had him under his name, so I didn't know why this would show up as just a number and not Jack. I asked who it was by texting just to be sure. He texted back saying Jack. I showed the text to Stephanie, and we then went back to Jack's store to see him. After arriving there, he said hi again, and that he was surprised to see us so soon. I told him how he had texted me, and he said that he did not text me. I showed him the text, and he said it wasn't him. He even showed me his phone, and he had not in fact texted me, and that was also not in fact his number. It was really strange. I looked around, wondering if somebody else in the store was behind the text messages. It was packed in there. I had really no way of knowing who it could have been. After that, Stephanie and I left the store once again, and we walked back out to where we had been going before the text. A while later, we went to the food court and were sitting at a table and eating. It was very busy there as well. When we were there though, I got another text on the phone from the same number. I looked at it, and this time the text said that I looked cute. I was creeped out, and I looked around again. However, anybody could have been sending these texts. There were hundreds of people within my sight. Stephanie and I were not really sure what to do. I texted the number back asking who it was, but they did not answer me. Instead, about 5 minutes later, while we were still sitting there, they sent another text. This one was a picture though. I looked at it, and it was of me, taken probably just seconds prior, and it was really zoomed in. I looked at it for a while, and then I looked around for the direction that the photo was taken from. After scanning around the food court, I finally saw it. There was a man standing pretty far away from us near the edge of the food court to my left, and he was just staring at me. He had this creepy grin on his face, and when Stephanie saw him, she was also creeped out. We decided to just get up and leave the mall. After standing though, I saw the man start to walk in my direction. He was still a long ways away though. We both got to moving, and we walked very quickly to the opposite way where the man was. There was enough people around that we were pretty much able to get a good distance away from him. We quickly took an escalator down to the lower level, and then we found the way to the parking garage that we had parked in. I kept looking back over my shoulder, but I never saw the guy. We were able to leave and get home after that, and I blocked the guy's number as well. I'm not sure how he got my number in the first place. I haven't seen him since though. We reported him to the mall, and hopefully he was either found and banned, or will not do anything like that again. Back in the year 2000, I worked at a GameStop for a while. This was a really fun time in video games, because the PlayStation 2 came out earlier that year. I remember buying one, and also the lines of people to get them that day. So when Black Friday rolled around later on in the year, we figured that it would be a similar situation. The PS2 was still a hot seller, and it was going on sale as well as many other games. At our store, it was part of a small strip mall, and we would only allow a certain number of people to be shopping at once. So somebody would stand out by the door and let people in when other customers left. Otherwise, the small store would be so crowded, and there would be a risk of shoplifting and things like that. I don't remember exactly when we opened that room, but I know that it was pretty early and still dark out at the time. I was working before I did poetry something, and I got there about 30 minutes before we opened. I was assigned to be the person who would stand outside and keep the line moving, as well as make sure that the store didn't get too busy. I didn't really want to do that, but I guess it wasn't that difficult either. So a little bit before open time, I went out there, and there was already a decent line of people outside. I announced to everybody that we were only letting a certain amount of people in at a time. Then we opened, and the doors were unlocked, and people started filing in. For the first hour or so, things went pretty well. The line was organized and went smoothly. At one point though, there was an interesting looking guy that got in line. I noticed him when he was maybe 10 people from the front. He was a somewhat tall and thin man, wearing a rather odd and creepy mask completely covering his head. It was obviously not Halloween, so I didn't know why he was wearing it. He looked kind of creepy, but it was probably just a joke. When I was letting more people in the store, the guy got closer to the front of the line. That's when I realized that he did not appear to be with anybody else, but by himself. This added to the strangeness of it, and when I was letting more people in, he didn't go. I remember that it was his turn, and he just stood there, holding up the line. I told him that he could go in, but he didn't move. He just ignored me, and after a while, he moved to the side of me, and some people behind him started to go in front of him. Then he just kept standing there. More people walked past him, and he stayed in the same spot for like 30 more minutes to an hour. Soon, things quieted down enough that I no longer had to be outside. There was no longer a line of people outside the store, just this one guy standing there. I let everybody who was going to the store in right away, but the masked man did not enter. He just kept standing in the same spot, sort of looking at me and sort of looking towards the store. I didn't know what his deal was. I tried asking him, but he just ignored me. So then I was able to go back inside the store and work in there for the rest of the time, helping customers. I had pretty much forgotten about the guy after a while of being inside. But then,